So I didn't get to shout what I'm grateful for just a minute ago, but I'm grateful for skateboarding. I'm most grateful for skateboarding because, as you heard earlier, everyone has a really interesting story involving skateboarding. So I'm going to go ahead and share my favorite one with you. So the most memorable moment that I've ever had on a skateboard was actually my very first and terrible fall. Now, anyone that knows me now knows that I don't skate handrails, but years ago I did. I enjoyed them. But on this particular day, it was very average. Everything was okay. It was the normal day. And after about 30 minutes of trying this handrail, it felt as if my skateboard had been hit with an invisible wall. And before you knew it, I was flying through the air, full speed, directly to the ground. Now, if you've ever dropped a bowling ball on hardwood floor at a bowling alley, that was the exact sound that it made when I hit the ground. In that moment, there were only a couple things that were running through my head. Of course, the first one being how bad was I truly injured. So, of course, I checked to make sure all of my limbs were still attached. But most importantly, what I thought about was I willing to get up and take that risk and run that risk of falling that hard again? Of course, my decision is very clear because 10 years later, I'm still skateboarding, a professional skateboarder now, and I still love skateboarding. And in fact, even through skateboarding, I teach skateboarding lessons to children and adults. They range from the age of 5 to 35. And the cool thing about skateboarding is when I learned to skateboard, it was through a collection of different friends and things like that. They all gave me different perspective, helped me understand how to do specific tricks and things like that. It's probably the one sport where it's totally okay for me as a 28-year-old to hang out at a skate park with someone that's 15 or also that's 40. And it's really interesting. But through all those challenges and learning to skateboard, the one thing that my friends couldn't teach me, but I had to learn on my own, I had to become very familiar with failure. So with the kids that I teach skateboarding lessons to, I've noticed something very strange. Now, for a moment, this is Braden. He's really rad. I love the guy. He just turned 8 years old. So he's very animated when it comes to skateboarding. So when I first see him at the skate park, he's very excited to skate. He just, in this photo in particular, as you can see, he's happy as a clam. He's really happy because he landed that trick. That trick, he's very focused. You can see him drawn in. But also, when he struggles to do something first try or second try, or even after 30 minutes of trying, he becomes very angry. And it always reminds me and makes me think of something that's very troubling, and it bothers me. In this day and age, in this society, instant gratification has become the norm across the board. It's true for me, and it's true for a lot of us. When our situation isn't ideal right away, when we don't find the result right away that we want, we become frustrated, and in turn, that causes us to shut down. We stop trying whatever it is that we need to try or that we want to accomplish. And we shouldn't do that. Failure, to me, is the most important thing that we need to have. In fact, failure should be celebrated and embraced by all of us. It should never be treated as something negative. Now, going back to skateboarding, I get the question a lot where people ask me, oh, how do you get the board off the ground? How do you do this? And I'll explain it to you tonight in the simplest terms that I can. Now, with that practice, with skateboarding, in order to successfully do a trick, especially a kickflip, you have to know exactly how much force you need to put on your tail to pop your board up, how fast you need to slide your front foot up it, and then at the same time, flicking your foot. Now, that's the easy part. That's how you get it to turn. Now, also after that, you have to stare down, wait for your board to come around, put your feet down with just the right pressure so that you land and roll away perfectly. Now, it sounds a lot harder than it looks, right? So, as a visual artist as well, how I learned through 2 mentors. I also read a lot of books and things like that. And the thing with the books, I picked up a lot. There's a lot of do's and don'ts. There's a lot of guidelines. There's a lot of rules. And I think that's wrong. When it comes to learning and growing, the best way and the fastest way that we can ever grow and learn is through the experience of failure. When you put restrictions and you put a path on success, you're doing nothing but restricting yourself from growing into the greatest that you could be. Now let's go back to skateboarding a little bit. I had to fail 1,000 times before I successfully did my first kickflip. I had to. It was part of that process. We all have to fail when we're learning something. But with that, I failed 1,000 times, but in that process, I learned something that could not be taught in a classroom to anyone. I learned creative problem solving. I learned how to break down my own actions, try different things, make different things work, maybe experiment with whatever I was doing. I learned to break down that process in order to be successful. And I also learned to never give up. I learned persistence because you have to keep trying and trying in order to succeed. And that's why I push failure so much. With the kids that I teach skateboarding lessons to, I do my best to explain to them that you are not going to get it first try. If you do, fantastic, that's awesome, but you didn't learn anything. There's a reason why there are successful pop stars and one-hit wonders. They got it right the first time, but there's no formula to their success. You have to struggle, and you have to fight through it. You have to do it in order to keep pushing forward. And personally, I think I need this, you all need this, and everyone that you know need this. We all need to fail at everything that we do. We need to fail. Because this is how we learn to progress. This is how we learn to stay persistent and keep fighting. This is how we grow. We as a human race have not progressed this far without failing constantly. The last thing I want to talk about is, it's one of the phrases I hear a lot, and I don't like it. I honestly think it's counterproductive, and I want to pass it along to you. Everyone always says practice makes perfect, but they're incorrect, simply. If you'd like to argue about it later, that's fine. But practice does not make perfect. Practice makes persistence. With persistence, you breed consistency. With consistency, that gives you everything you need to learn, move forward, and progress. So right before I walk off this stage, I want all of you to think about something, whether it be you personally, someone you know that's doing everything they can to accomplish their dreams and their goals. I want you to think about this. In your lives, what were you afraid to fail at that you'd still love to accomplish? And how are you going to stop that and succeed when stepping into tomorrow? Thank you.